Tonight we're going to talk about a very familiar word when it comes to marriage. And it's really probably the key word when it comes to marriage. But it's also probably something that we kind of take for granted or we've gotten familiar with. And we all know familiarity breeds contempt. So when you get too familiar, a lot of times you let your guard down, you don't take things as seriously as you should, and you also take things for granted. Like it's here today, it's going to be there tomorrow. They've been dealing with me this long, the way I am. They're probably going to be dealing with me the next 10 years. And sometimes people get surprised when that person says, I'm not dealing with you anymore like that. I'm done dealing with you like that. And that's all centered around one word: relationship. Relationship. If we define relationship, we just look at that word. We actually see three words. One is a suffix at the end, ship, which means basically the act, the quality, the state of something. So you see that on the end of certain words. That's what it represents. You first see in that word to relate, right? Then you will see relation or relations, right? And those are most likely family members or people you even feel are like your family members. We can't have good relationships until we start relating to one another. Seems, like duh, but it's really not that simple. It's actually very, very hard. Eleanor Roosevelt felt that it was hard because he said that sometimes we are afraid to go deeper into our relationships because we're afraid that the person may not love us as much as we love them. If you're married, you should have confidence that your spouse loves you. Everybody said amen. You should have confidence that your spouse loves you. You should have confidence that your spouse loves you as much as you love them. And there shouldn't be any question about relating to one another on that basis. So tonight, let's have some discussion about that definition. The act, the quality, and the state of relating. That is a relationship. We'll say that. The act, the quality, and the state of relating. Okay, everybody understand what that means? So here's a Bible verse, since nobody answered me. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 32. Does everybody understand what that means?
Yes.
Okay. So if I ask somebody in here what that means, they'll be able to tell me. She said she don't know. Tina said she didn't say anything.
It's not 100%.
Okay. The act, quality, and the state of relating. What's that mean while we're going to Ephesians chapter 4, 32?
Well, I guess one aspect of it may be when we're talking about relating, you've got to have something to do with communicating.
Okay.
We communicate the quantity of our communication and how we communicate with each other.
Okay. act of relating, the quality of relating, and the state of relating is a relationship. Read Ephesians chapter 4, verse 32. Yes?
I think it's the act of being close to someone, because a relative is someone who's close in
Right.
kinship.
Okay? Read our text.
Okay. And to be kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, has forgiven you.
So, when it comes to relating to people, you have to understand, before you are relating to your husband and you are relating to your wife, you are relating to a person. And sometimes we forget that the person we're trying to have a relationship with was someone or something before we married them. Right? They had ideas, they had ambitions, they had goals, they had dreams, they had desires, they had attitudes. They had dispositions. Yeah? They had ways of doing things. They had routines, which we're going to talk about tonight. And a lot of that had nothing to do with you. Right? So the key to that verse is learning, first of all, that you're relating to a person. And number two, because we are Christians in this room, we are relating to Christians. So we're building a relationship, even though we're married, with a Christian. Now, see, now wheels are turning, right? You're building a relationship with a Christian. You have a responsibility, according to our key verse, to be kind to the person you're trying. You will not have a good relationship with anybody if you don't learn to be kind.
Amen.
Be kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, has forgiven you. Kind, to be kind. We forget. See what I'm talking about? We forget that there's a person here. We forget that that person is a Christian. We forget we have a responsibility to interact with them in the spirit of Scripture. And number one, what I've learned over the years, you have to be kind if you want to have good relationships with people. Because we have the tendency to test our relationships. Now, when I say test, I don't mean we wake up and go, oh, I'm going to start something with my team the other day to see if she still loves me. That's being stupid. And that's also called manipulation, which I cannot stand. Like, if you're a manipulator, like, stay away from me, because I can't stand it. I'd rather somebody smack me in the face, right?
Yeah.
Than try to manipulate. I hate manipulation. I can't stand that stuff. It's just sickening. Almost got on a tangent. Never say, come back, Pastor. Come back in. Woo. That would be manipulation if I did that to her, because then she would always feel like she's on pins and needles and there's always some kind of... No, we do it accidentally, right? And how we do it is this way, and then we're going to get into our study, the act of quality in the state. We do it by not changing. That's how we test our spouse. Would it be spouses or spouse? Spouse. Right? Miss Grammar, you're supposed to help me out here.
Oh, hello. I'm trying to take notes.
Spouse or spouse? Spouses. Spouse. Not mouses. Spouse. Okay. We test by not changing, which goes back to our Christianity, right? If you're not changing in your walk with God, you're not changing in your marriage. If you're not becoming more of a Christian, your marriage is suffering because of it. And that's how you're testing one another. It's the lack in our character that causes us to get into fights. I didn't say it was the lack in her character.
Right.
It's the lack in our character. We're missing something in our relationship with Christ, and because we don't have enough of a Christ-like character, I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing, and it's offending her, right? And vice versa, right? So then we end up with problems in our relationship, and that's what makes it hard to operate in kindness. What happens is, this is why people get divorces, because they get judgmental. They get on a high horse. They can only see what the other person's doing wrong. And they cannot see where they also are not matching up to Christ-like character. Disagree with me or agree with me?
Agree.
How many want to avoid a divorce?
Yeah.
Right? You want to be married till death us do part, right? So we're going to talk about this. Number one, the act. Are you ready? The act of relating to people requires three things. And so this might take us more than one session. I don't know. Depends on how much you guys talk. If I talk, we might be done in 5 minutes. Interest. Number one, interest. Okay? The act of relating to people is an action, right?
Yeah.
So if you're married to a person that's a Christian, if you are going to relate to them, you must show interest in them. A person must feel that you are interested in them if you're going to have a relationship with them. See, you showed enough interest to get on that first date, that second date, right? You worked hard to show interest. If you don't show interest in somebody, they're not going to have a relationship with you, especially when it comes to male and females, right? I never had a problem, with girls liking me, man. And Lou, there's a lot of girls that like me. And I'm like, no, I don't like you. And they couldn't figure it out. Why doesn't he like me? Frustrated. Because I'm not interested in you. So I was different, Larry. Like guys use girls. I never did. I was like, if I'm not interested in you, I'm not going to just use you. I just don't like you. Go find somebody else who likes you. Right? But when I was interested in somebody, I literally walked from Jeanette to Greensburg because I didn't have a car to see somebody I was interested in. She had kicked me out of her house at night. Remember those days, bud? Because I was interested in her. I wanted to be around her all the time. I couldn't stand it when she went somewhere else. I wanted to be, and I still want to be around her. I still get on her nerves. The other day, she's like, get away from me, man. I still want to be around my wife. I'm interested in her. I want to know what she's doing. I want to know how she feels. You see what I'm saying? When you start losing that, the person can feel it.
That's right.
They can feel it. You can't fake that. Either you're interested in them or you're not. And what happens when you lose interest in your spouse? What happens?
They go somewhere else to get the interest.
Oh, they do what? Speak up.
They go somewhere else to get the interest.
They go somewhere else where they feel like somebody's interested in them.
Yeah.
Right? Start conversations. Right?
Yeah.
So you have a big job on your hands being married. And the longer you're married, the more you have to be conscious of it, because you can just have what they call a situationship and not a relationship. And we'll talk about that later. So show interest, number one. That's an action. You have to take action. And sometimes that means you have to be creative. You got to reboot. Start over. The computer is stalled. Clear, Alt, and Delete. Sometimes your marriage just stalls. It's not working. Clear, Alt, Delete, reboot, start over, stir up some new interest, figure out something, get something fresh, and show interest. Number 2, the act of relating to people, you must intersect. Okay? You must make sure that your routines, your daily routines, have a time where you are intersecting. See what I'm saying? You're crossing one another's paths. That, as Cliff said, is making sure you're creating some kind of conversation. Me and my wife often intersect on the couches. This is a wonderful thing. You know, almost every evening. Not every single evening, but almost every evening. And, you know, if I'm downstairs playing music and she's way upstairs because somebody else is watching something she doesn't want to watch, I still make sure that I intersect where she's at. 3 or 4 times. I'll walk back upstairs, give her a hug, you know, rub her foot or something, watch what she's watching for a couple minutes, run back downstairs. Always intersect. Our intersection is on those couches. So she comes in. I know at some period of time, I got to get in my position on the couch. She's on her couch, I'm on my couch. I'm looking at her, she's looking at me, and then there's a time where I have to discern if she wants to cuddle. Or does she just want to go upstairs? See, that's intersecting. Now, if I'm not paying attention, and sometimes I want to cuddle, so I'll go, right? That's intersecting. And sometimes people in marriage get so caught up in their routines that they're just like flying right past each other like they're on the interstate. Right? There's very little or no conversation, or very superficial. One person's going one direction, another person's going another direction. And you can only do that for so long before your marriage runs out of gas. You having church with me?
Yeah.
Am I talking something you understand? Your marriage will run out of gas. You just keep flying down the interstate. It's going to run out. There's going to be no joy in your marriage. There's going to be no cuddling in your marriage. So there's going to be no laughter in your marriage. We intersect around the television. We'll watch things together. The dumbest stuff. That probably people will come to our house and be like, why are they watching that? I mean, the dumbest stuff. We watch some silly, stupid shows where we can criticize the people. That's a good method, man. No, seriously. You guys find some things that you guys can criticize, because it'll get all the criticism out of you. See what I'm saying? We sit there and we just rip them apart. They're stupid. How dumb is that? This is the dumbest thing I ever heard in my life. You get all that negative energy out of you, you're good to go. You see what I'm saying? We intersect around TV. We sit there and we watch things together. We make sure, like, when the weekend, either it's a Friday or a Saturday, depending on how our schedules go, we're hanging out together. You know, I make sure I kind of stop. You have something to do. She doesn't have something to do. Okay, we'll just go down Monroeville. You go into the mall, I'll go to the Guitar Center. Or I'll sit in my car and just wait on her. There's sometimes I'm in the car for 2 hours. I'm just sitting there waiting on her until she's done. I don't want to shop blue, I don't want to do nothing. I just want to be with my wife.
Yeah.
And I'll just sit there in the car for 2 hours and I'll study, or I'll turn some music on, Larry, and I'll just be sitting. And sometimes, you know, you can't leave the car on the whole time. And sometimes it was hot. And I didn't want to go in the mall. I get tired of looking at people sometimes, man. I just don't want to bother. Sometimes I'm afraid I'm going to run into somebody I know and have to talk. But you see what I'm trying to teach you? It's something perfect. This is an act. It's action. I'm taking action. We're taking action. And you have to do this on purpose, y'all. This is not going to happen unless you make it happen.
Amen.
And then number 3, the act of relating in your marriage or in any relationship with any person, you have to invest. You have to invest. So I want you to also look at your marriage like a business. Business, listen, there is no business that can succeed without investors. Can't happen. Now I know you're thinking, partners, people who put their money in. No, your investors are the guy that sweeps the floor, the guy that runs the machine, the person that does the bills, the person that manages the floor. Any business, anybody that has a business understands that these people are all investors. Number one, they don't have to do what they're doing. That's why you should always appreciate people that are under you when you're in authority, because they don't have to do what they're doing.
That's right.
And that's why you should appreciate when your spouse is trying to invest in your relationship. Now, this is where we need some talk from you. How can you invest in your relationship? Making time for each other. Okay? How can you invest in your relationship? Investors. It's like a business. How can you, I gave you some clues. How can you invest in your relationship? Making time for each other.
Gifts.
Gifts! See, that's where everybody should have said, yeah. Especially all the ladies, you gotta step up your game, man. Now see, you didn't even send him a clue. You just sat there. Pastor John, would you please say that again?
Gifts.
There you go. Now your man says, oh, she likes gifts. Right? Give him a clue.
You could save up time, save up money, invest in a vacation, get away, man. I could second savings for a year, man.
There you
That's a
go.
big investment. A couple $100 in a couple days vacation, boom, right?
I love that. Exactly. He says save up your money, save up your time, make a plan. What's some other ways to invest? That won't even cost you a dime.
By doing things.
Doing things. Remember, we gave you the illustration. A guy sweeping the floor is investing in your company, and a guy that's running the machine is investing in your company. Is it any different? No, it's not, because that floor has to be clean. Because if those machines get dirty, it's going to affect the quality. So every little thing that you can do, right? Sometimes do the dishes. Sometimes cook. I don't cook anymore, but I'll pick up food. That's an investment.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because I like the little message I get. Thank you, cutie. See what I mean? I like that message. See what I'm saying? You gotta know how to work it, man. Timing, you know. I know that it's, marriage alive night. She's not gonna want to come home. I grab something. I usually grab a chicken, something, something simple. But I like the message I get too, because I know I'm gonna get that nice message. But I'm investing. I'm letting her know. I'm watching everything. I'm watching her energy, right? Every once in a while I say, when you feel too tired, stay home from Bible study. You live with the pastor, so you don't need church all the time. Never hear that from any other pastor in the world. Sometimes you need to be by yourself.
Amen.
And she's around people all the time, and around us, and around church people all the time. And sometimes, if you don't see her, it's because she just needs to be by herself sometimes. Everybody said.
Amen.
And same thing with your spouse. Investing is letting them alone. Sometimes just leave them alone.
Yeah.
And let them be quiet. And let them sit. And don't bring up something. Nothing can just ruin a good moment of being by yourself, and your spouse comes in and says, you know, and as soon as you hear that, you know it's all downhill from there. Right? All you hear is, you know, I was thinking, or I meant to tell you this earlier, and you're like, go ahead. I'm not bothering you, am I? You can tell you're bothering them. You know if you have to ask, am I bothering you? You already know you're bothering them. So look at your neighbor and say, just stop bothering them sometimes. Just stop bothering them. Just let them go. Because seriously, when you see them in that moment, when they look like they're zoned out a little bit, or like, just let them alone, man. They need that to regroup. Okay, but there's some other ways. Real quick, come on. Invest. And we're going to give you a scripture.
Just by affirming them sometimes.
Oh, come on, now that's what I'm talking about.
Giving affirmation, often positive.
Make it
affirmation.
specific, man.
Whenever
Break
they
it
do
down.
something and you kind of like affirm them for some of the good things about them.
You're still being too technical. Give me some words. How do you do it?
We have an example.
Go ahead.
Like when she's doing her dedication or doing my dedication, if there's a piece of passage or something that God has presented to you that you think is very good information, take your partner and share that same information.
That's good. Right. Some spiritual things. Is that what you're talking about? Sharing some devotional things. That's very good. That's very good. But sometimes that don't work for people. You know what I mean? Sometimes that ends up in an argument. I'm serious. I seen it where they start debating about the verse with the verse. You know?
Yeah. But
But no, that's a good one though.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I affirm Beverly all the time for the way that she takes care of me and how she looks out and cooks.
Okay,
and
what do you say? That's what I'm looking for.
Bookie boo, I
I knew there was something there, didn't I? I knew there was something you was holding on
I really appreciate how you take care of me, how you look out for me. I appreciate you cooking for me.
Right.
Because if you didn't, I'd starve.
Right. Right. So you have to use words to invest. See, in marriage, the guy sweeping the floor doesn't have to say anything. He just has to sweep the floor so he can get his check. So if he come down and the floor is not swept, he's going to be in trouble. Right? He don't have to come to work and say every day to the boss, hey boss, thank you for giving me this job. Every day he comes in, thank you for giving me this job. That boss is going to be like, dude, if you say that to me one more time, you don't have a job. Right? But when you're in marriage, you have to invest with your words. You have to say. Here's a principle in the Bible. Matthew chapter 6 verse, or Luke chapter 6 verse 38. Luke chapter 6 verse 38. This is a principle. So if there is a deficit in the investment of words in your relationship, Luke chapter 6 and verse 38.
Luke 6:38, give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down and shaken together, and running over, shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that you meet withal, it shall be measured to you again.
There you go. So if I invest in my words, I invest my words in my marriage with my wife, and I'm saying things to her to make her feel good about herself, let her know how I feel, she is going to do the same. God's word does not lie.
Amen.
I know she's going to do the same, number one, because she's a Christian. She's God's child. That's the benefit of marrying a Christian. You know, when you're married and when you've got two Christians, you have a lot of benefits that people who don't know Christ don't have. There's obligations that you have to meet. And right there is a principle. If I give and I invest with my words and I say things to make my spouse feel good, there's something so powerful when people compliment us. I don't know why we were just created that way, and we just got so much ego, you know. We just want people to say good things about us. You know, we can't stand being corrected. We just don't like it, but we love it when people say good things about us.
That's right.
And so you have an obligation to invest and say some things at least once or twice a day. At least once, everybody say it, at least once or twice a day. Say something to make your spouse feel good.
Amen.
And that will go a long way. All right?
Yes.
Number 2, the quality of relating. The quality of relating. So, if there's going to be a level of quality to this, number 1, you have to be genuine, not fake. Okay? You have to be genuine, not fake. Now, sometimes we're not genuine because we're holding on to something. We're holding on to something. So in other words, watch. So I go and I say something nice, or Tina says something nice about me. She says, "Thank you, Judy." And, you know, I'm playing back into what she just said to me, but really inside, there's something I'm holding against her. See what I'm saying? That means the quality of our relationship is not genuine. Even though I'm going along with it, I'm not even starting any trouble, but there's something in here. And here's what happens in relationships, in marriage. It's in here, and it's like a volcano. In the right set of circumstance, the right amount of pressure builds up. The right amount of heat builds up. And then there's an eruption.
Yeah.
And that other person is like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Now you've really done double damage in your marriage, because now they won't trust you for a long time when you say, "I love you." Woo!
Verse 32.
Right?
31 and 32, right?
Hmm? You see what I'm saying? They won't trust you for a long time because you've blown that. Because all this lovey-dovey and all this stuff that you were saying to build your relationship really wasn't genuine. Just took the right set of circumstances to bring out the grudge you were holding. Hmm? Then all of a sudden, boom! So the next time you go back and say, "Oh, I love you, sweetie," they're like, right? And we're not talking gender here.
Right.
I counsel enough people. Women blow up on men and men blow up on women. And ladies, you don't have a license to blow up on men. Because we give them a license in this culture, but we don't get a license in this class.
Amen.
You get a license in the culture, but you don't get a license in this class.
Amen.
Like women today think they can hit men.
Come on now.
They think they can hit them. They think they can yell and scream at them. And guys are not allowed to say anything.
Come on.
Guys are not allowed to defend themselves. Me and my wife had a pact a long time ago. Pretty simple. You hit me, I'm calling cops on you. It's pretty simple. She starts wailing on me, I'm going outside, walking into my driveway, 911. She could be in there screaming, I'm gonna be out where everybody can see me. My wife's over here attacking me and hitting me, and I'm afraid for my life. Somebody say amen. You ain't beating up on me.
Amen.
And I'm not coming home and you're screaming at me all the time.
Amen.
Because it makes void all that we try to build. So the key to being genuine and not fake is to take care of anything that's in there that you might be harboring. against your spouse. Now that takes Christian maturity to be able to do that. Because a lot of times we have a hard time handling when our spouse presents something to us. This is where the men have a problem, Lou. Because we think we're all that. And when our spouse comes to us and shows us that we're not, our pride jumps in. Then we start, our first thing is, look at the house you live in. Look at the car you drive. You got it pretty easy living with me. And, we run to that, there's a lot of women that would like to be with me. That's where guys go. They may not say it, but that's where they go. That's our thing. You see, well, you got to be able to take it too, guys.
Yeah.
Without holding a grudge after she presents to you. Because there's a lot of husbands with a chip on their shoulder
Amen.
against their wife because their wife didn't like something about it. Felt that there was something that needed to be changed. And if you're not careful, you're going to get in an argument one day, and there's going to be 2 volcanoes that go off. And a lot of things happen when the volcanoes go off that you can't get back.
Yeah.
That's what I'm always afraid of with people. Tell your neighbor, don't go there.
Don't go there.
Go here.
Go here.
Get in there and make sure that you're not holding grudges. And don't be so thin-skinned that you get a grudge all the time. Somebody say amen.
Amen.
Number 2, so this is building equality. You see my point? So there's no quality if you're faking. Number 2, to build quality in your relationship, you have to be generous, not frugal. So not fake, not frugal. This is the one area that you have to be generous in. That means you're going to have to give when you don't have anything to give. Work is going to tap you out. Your son is going to tap you out. Your dad is going to tap you out. And you're going to feel like, I don't have nothing else to give. I'm done. But you can never be done when it comes to your spouse.
Amen.
You have to be frugal. You can't be frugal. You can't be like, oh, I'm going to save some. I'm going to save it. Nope. Your wife needs your attention. You got to find a way to make it happen with a smile on your face. You still with me? You got to be generous. Generous. Look for ways to keep the quality. If you see the quality starting to decline, I use the illustration. I try to keep using that illustration. You get on there, and the floor is only half swept. We got a problem. Can't half sweep the floor. You got to sweep it all up. You got to constantly have quality control in your marriage. Generous. I'm always checking. Just that look in the eye. That's all it takes sometimes. Just look him in the eye. If something looks like they're, listen, if somebody else asked your spouse what's wrong before you do, something's wrong. Did you hear that? What do I mean by that? I'm talking about quality control.
If somebody else notices a problem, it's responsible for you. That's a problem.
You should be ashamed. You should be ashamed. That means that person has built some kind of relationship with them because they notice something's wrong. Right? Quality. You should. This is one thing you have to strive for in your marriage. Do you want a good marriage or a bad marriage? You want a successful marriage or you want a failing marriage? Do you want a relationship or a shipwreck? Shout with me. Somebody tell me what you want.
Yeah, relationship.
How many want a successful marriage? Wave your hand. Right? You got to check the quality. Check the quality. Any comments, questions? All right, number 3. I love this one. Number 3. And I learned all this stuff from being married for 28 years. Very rarely do I go to other sources when I'm doing this. I use my own life. Because I take marriage so seriously. I take my marriage very, very seriously. It is the most important thing that I'm doing in my life, is my marriage. Not my ministry. Because my ministry is nothing if my marriage is jacked up.
Amen.
I'm coming in here and my marriage is all jacked up and I'm pretending like I'm Mr. Godly man.
Right.
Amen.
I fail everybody.
Amen.
I have to make sure that my marriage is intact. Number 3, to keep quality in your relationship, you have to be gentle. Let's get another scripture. Galatians chapter 5, 22 and 23. You have to be gentle. You can't force quality. After he reads the scripture, we'll expound on that. That's a good thing to write down. You cannot force quality. You can't fake, right? You can't be frugal, and you can't force quality.
But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law.
There you go. Against such there is no law. There's no legalism when you're operating in love, joy, peace, long-suffering, goodness, gentleness, faith, meekness, and temperance. There's no legalism. What he's saying is most people are looking for that. But the problem is there's always a deficit of love, joy, peace, long-suffering, goodness, gentleness, faith, meekness, and temperance. That's what people want in relationships right there. There's always a deficit of it. Right? But I'm going to focus on gentleness. You cannot force quality in your marriage. That's why, number 1, in now I'm trying to work on ways to figure out how I can be her boyfriend again. Yeah. That's what I've been doing lately. I've been her husband for 28 years. Now I need to be her boyfriend again. Seriously, man. That's what I'm doing. Like, figure out how to be her boyfriend. Because we forget. See, when you're a husband, you think you have the right to force things. Back to the men. You can't force your wife to do anything.
Amen.
And I mean anything.
That's right.
And I mean, and I mean
Anything.
anything. Whether you like it or not. And don't throw the Bible at me.
That's right.
I know what the Bible says.
Amen.
Because if you have to force it,
Amen.
is it worth it anyway?
Amen.
You see what I'm saying? There has to be quality that's achieved in your marriage. But if your husband or your wife has a character flaw, which we all do, you can't force them to change their character.
Amen.
How many know that's only one person's job?
That's right. Amen.
Amen.
And who's that? God. So tell your neighbor, who should be your spouse, stop trying to play God.
Stop trying to play God.
Stop trying to play God. Now, sometimes that is overtly, and then sometimes there's a covert operation going on. Sometimes people are forcing it by what they're doing. And then sometimes people try to force it by what they're not doing.
Amen.
You with me?
Yeah.
Both of those are wrong. Both of those are dead wrong. If your spouse has a character flaw, yes, you have a responsibility to point it out to them, but you are not being a Christian. And you have a responsibility to accept that and to look at it and examine it. But you never have a right to interrogate somebody about their character flaw. Don't you ever bring my name up. People do this to the pastor. You know what the pastor said? You come into church on Sunday, you know how I greet everybody, right? You come into church on Sunday, we shaking everybody's hand, and we get ready to shake. You know, Bill's hand, and Bill's like. What did I do to Bill? You see what I'm saying? Like, don't do that to me. Don't do that to me, Sam. Pastor Roy said. Well, Pastor Roy ain't God. I'm just telling you what the Bible says. People bring me up in arguments and stuff. I told him that you was preaching that on Sunday. That's forcing it. Yeah. And we know this one thing, and we're going to close here. We know this one thing about, maybe not adults everywhere, but we're pretty familiar with adults in Western Pennsylvania. The one thing you don't want to do with people who live in Western Pennsylvania is try to make them do something. You can get people all over the country. And that's probably why they're more productive than us, and we're like 20 years behind in some cases. But in some ways, this is a great place to be because there ain't going to be no cult leaders around here. Because people don't go for, around here, they don't go for somebody trying to make them do something. There's something about the air or the water or something that makes you that way. Right? You guys see it from employees to everything. You know, and we got to watch that because people should be able to help us and correct us. But we already know that there's something about us in this area. So please, whatever you do, don't try to force it because they're going to go in the opposite direction. They're going to dig their heels in. Just to try to prove you wrong. Got that? Next class we'll come back and we'll look at the state of relating. Give yourselves a hand, you did a great job.